Well, in the midst of this vacation time, I won a trip to Europe, to Madrid, Spain, and I couldn't find anybody to take along with me. I couldn't take my older son. My ex-wife wouldn't allow that. So my ex-girlfriend I took along with me, thinking, well, it'll be a friendly trip. Well, that's the mistake. The next day, after Donna and I didn't get along too well on the first day, she flirted continuously with the tour guide of our trip. Pepe had curly hair and a mustache that surrounded his face. He was a very likable guy, tour guide, except he stole my ex-girlfriend, or my girl. So I gradually faded to the back of the group as we toured here and there. They looked like a nice couple, her arm in his all the time. I don't know if she's trying to get me jealous or what. I became so embarrassed that I waited to see which tour bus she and Pepe would take each day, and then I took the other one. Donna was incensed with this. She said it looked bad. Well, yeah. I avoided her at dinner, too. What do you think, hanging around arm in arm with Pepe? Do you think that looked good? She became the nagging wife the more I retreated. Now I know why I broke up with her. Each and every day ended with a tour of the stores that were surrounding where we went, so we could have our wallets empty. I noticed when I moved to her outside and went ahead of the guide, I noticed that the store owners were putting higher price tags up just before the group came by. The guide kept telling us to stay with him because he held our passports. I guess he got part of the take. If we got lost, he threatened, well, we're in a foreign country without ID because I have your passports. There was only one ferry, so I accompanied Donna to North Africa. The native Tunisians were who all had bad teeth, fast hands, and bad breath. The water was bad, so everyone drank Coca-Cola. They'd come up to you and put their hands everywhere on your body, in your pockets, on your hair. They were begging for money, obviously poor. And Donna panicked and moved back to where I was walking. I shielded her from everyone, was real protective. I'd never seen her this vulnerable before. After touring a couple of interesting spots, we went to a storefront restaurant. The couscous was topped with a half-cooked chicken that I wouldn't give to a boxer that came up to me one day. The atmosphere was exotic. An ugly belly dancer with rolls of fat bouncing around every which way entertained us. The waiter kept telling me to eat the raw chicken. I threw my dinner, piece by piece, under the table to avoid insulting him. He was happy because there was nothing left on my plate. I hesitated to find out what he'd find on the floor when he came back. Time to leave. The dancer seemed angry that no one put money in her outfit. Just outside the door, Clyde the camel grunted in my face as he planted a kiss on my lips before I had a chance to duck. You come right out of the door, and all of a sudden, you're face to face with a camel with his mouth out. $1, his owner demanded for luck. Donna went hysterical again when the natives surrounded our group. They all reached out to touch her. She was indeed beautiful, but an untouchable beauty, fragile. Our group became her shield. She walked in the middle of our circle, and tears poured down her face. She remained hysterical all the way back to the ferry. When we boarded, she slipped through the crowd and disappeared. I looked all over for her. There were all kinds of people on that large ship. When I came to the rear, I saw our group sitting together on the benches that were attached to the rounded stern of the ship. Gerry spoke over the din of the engines. "Where's Donna?" I sat down next to him and yelled, "I don't know. I've looked all over for her." I was about to panic, thinking she'd jumped overboard. Just then she appeared in the doorway and walked right up to me. Her face was marked with fresh tears and sunburn. She was even more beautiful in her vulnerability than I'd ever seen her before. Gerry moved over to make room. She sat down and put her weary head in my lap. "I'm so sorry about everything," she said. "I have nothing to give. I feel so empty." I looked down on her beautiful face resting in my lap, and my tears dropped down one by one, planting kisses on her cheek. I said I could really love you if you'd only let me. Someone had really done a number on her. That night we were scheduled to go gambling. All the good old boys were going. Donna had recovered and was up and ready for a night of chance. I was glad she was her usual cheerleader self again. She to go with her. Perhaps I missed my last chance. I really wanted time with Donna apart from the crowds, though. Gerry joined Donna and really tried hard to get me to go with him. He was already drunk. He'd been abusing Sheila the whole trip physically, and it was getting more physical by the day. So Sheila wasn't going to come back along that night either. I wasn't into gambling or dealing with Gerry's drunkenness. Gerry went back to his room angry and beat up his wife one more time. He accused her of trying to hook up with me after everyone left. She called security on him, but he was off gambling by then. I went to dinner next to the boxers' hangout. The waiter was arrogant when I couldn't speak Spanish. I ordered it in French, and he purposely brought the wrong food. I overheard him mocking my French. He spoke his ridicule in English. Didn't think I'd understand. I wolfed the food down and left no tip. He cursed me in Spanish. I saw how long his middle finger was. I thought about going back for dessert. No, let's call it a night. No point in picking a fight with the natives. I hoped Donna would come back early and we could spend our last night watching the moon over the Mediterranean together. I reluctantly dressed up for the final formal dinner the next night. After all, it wasn't Burroughs' fault for my misery. I purposely arrived late. Everyone was there except Donna. I wondered if she was going to show up at all. Her formal dress was in Dallas. Ed came up to me, my sales manager, and told me that Gerry was looking to kill me for hooking up with his wife. He was insane and out of control. Gerry arrived and I decided to duke it out right there. His eyes widened and he became his usual charming self. He apologized profusely in the face of a man who had nothing to lose. Everything was cool once more. What more could happen? Just then a vision entered the room, dressed in something wonderful. I don't know where she got the dress, but Donna looked absolutely stunning. The whole room stopped to look at this beauty. She no longer looked so vulnerable as she had on Africa Day. The dinner went well, and that was that. We all went back to Dallas. Everyone was cordial, perhaps too tired to be otherwise. I dropped Donna off, and we never saw one another again. She got her dress back. Gerry and Sheila got a messy divorce. A new chariot. Well, it was about time you dumped that piddly car. It's an embarrassment to everyone, Jimbo said. He's a fellow salesman there. He was the goodest of the good old boys. I was doing pretty well now, so it was time to get an impressive car. I leased a Buick Riviera. Cream-colored body with gold vinyl roof and them thar spoke wheels that people like to take for souvenirs. And they did. Trying to stay out of the cellar. We had a surprise announcement one Monday morning sales meeting. There was a contest for Salesman of the Year with monthly prizes, banquet dinner, formal awards ceremony with newspaper coverage. It was actually a citywide contest. Grand prize was a trip for two to Cozumel, Mexico. Oh no, I said to myself. I didn't want to give the good old boys further reason to ridicule me. I was sure they would post the scores every week and I would be holding up the cellar as usual. Most of the guys were consistently in six figures with all kinds of huge accounts like Texas Instruments, Boeing, LTV, Radio Shack, Motorola, and so on. All I had in my territory was a lot of medium to small accounts that I had to work hard to land and keep. So I kept my nose to the grindstone so I would be at least one up from the bottom. 5 months' figures were in. I stacked my freezer with corn-fed Iowa beef. I hadn't the slightest idea how to cook, so I gave it all away. Not being in the cellar was the reward. Being in first place after 1 month made me a target. I landed a few more nice-sized jobs and stayed in first place the next month. It was nice getting prizes. Scott squeaked by me the third and fourth month. But Jerry Eves, the winner for the last 2 years, came up with a couple of big months with his Texas Instruments account. When he started landing big ones, there was no stopping him, and this contest was accumulative. Then Jimbo came in with some heavy orders, so his numbers started climbing. I went into the last month of the contest with a slim lead. I never had a bad month and kept in the top 3 the whole time. The good old boys started talking Cozumel all the time to me, trying to rattle my confidence. I didn't want to start making plans to go to Mexico and be disappointed when I lost. Actually, all it would take is for anyone of the top 4 to hit a big one the last month, and it was winner take all. I had nothing big going myself. Scott said he was working on $1 million bid for a huge warehouse in Fort Worth, and it looked good. It was the largest dollar contract we'd ever gotten. That would leave everyone else in the dust. It was a matter of time if he could get the job and sneak it in under the wire. And Scott was an aggressive and underhanded competitor. He always played dirty tricks on me for laughs. But what he said and did was always so funny that I actually enjoyed being fooled and made fun of all the time. It was so quick that I didn't have a chance to make good comebacks. All I could do was laugh my face off. So Scott was up to his usual tricks. He tried to shake me up so I would lose my confidence, and it worked. I got him back in spades later on, though. I went to a novelty store and picked up an exhaust bomb whistle. I placed it in his exhaust pipe and waited in the office, looking out the window, pretending to do paperwork, until he got up to leave. I walked over to the window, facing the parking lot, waited and watched. Roof! The car started up. He had a dark blue Buick Regal, a nice-looking car. All of a sudden, I heard what sounded like a huge bomb dropping from an overhead bomber. Scott ran for the parking lot to the next county. The door was left wide open and the engine's running, and so the bomb in his exhaust kept on whistling louder and louder. I couldn't stand it all. I was laughing so hard. It took him 20 minutes to walk back into the office. I had gained my composure and pretended to be doing paperwork. That's the first time I ever saw him at a loss for words. And I think I heard him mumble, "You got me." Anyway, the bad news was that Scott did get that huge order in time. The good news was that it wasn't a genuine Canon order, so it didn't strictly meet the contest rules. The bid was so competitive that Scott had to take a minimal finder's fee to land the job and let the manufacturer take the contract instead of us. He knew this all the time, but tried to get the dollar volume counted as a full Canon order. He tried everything, but the owner held firm. I was surprised because Scott was the sales manager's son. No one else landed a big order, but I landed a number of very profitable medium-sized orders that added up to Cozumel for the Yankee. Scott was really bitter about his loss, kept telling me he should have won it, but that didn't make me enjoy Cozumel any the less. He won the next year anyway. So a gorilla mask makes a fine sales tool. I can't remember when I started buying things in novelty stores. Several of my regular customers really appreciated my humor, so I started to loosen up a bit. My best prop was a gorilla mask, and my best audience was GAF off Mockingbird Lane in Irving. So they made roof tiles. Wanda had a laugh that made you fall in love with her. It matched her good looks. Shame she was married to a really nice guy. One time I snuck into a reception area and slipped on the mask and sat down facing the window. I heard her startled laugh, but then she got her composure and slid open the reception window and said, "Sir, you can come in now. Who are you here to see?" I grunted. She called my bluff and came around to the door and opened it up, and before I could take off the mask, she grabbed me by the hand and gave me the tour of the entire office with the mask on. She left no corner unvisited and demanded I drag my knuckles and act like a monkey. I visited people in that company that were way up on the executive level. I was deathly afraid of taking the mask off, and no one asked me to. I thought I'd lose the account. I got one order after another from GAF after that. A lucrative cost-plus inventory contract from them was what gave me the final push to Cozumel. To wear or not to wear the mask. There's a time and place for everything. I think the good book says somewhere. So it wasn't the time sitting on the dais in a tuxedo in front of Dallas's key corporate executives with news reporters and my picture projected on the wall with the MC giving my bio for the Salesman of the Year. And it wasn't that time to don my gorilla mask. But I brought it with me. I left it in the car, though, and Scott came up to me just before and placed something under my table in my lap. He winked and quickly went back to his seat next to his father, Ed, my sales manager. He was either trying to get rid of me or have a big laugh or both. Ed was looking at me straight in the eye, with daggers, and was motioning the guillotine sign like I'd get fired if I put it on. I pulled out what Scott put in my lap, my old friend the gorilla mask. Now my date, Eleanor, said, "Don't you dare." I took their advice. Scott had egged me on before